So welcome everyone to this webinar, part of the professional webinars of the Regional Studies Association. And a warm welcome to you all that you are connecting from all around the world. Good day to you. And my name is Eduardo, and I'm currently a researcher at the University of Kiel in Germany, and one of the editors of the Regional Studies Association magazine, online magazine, Only Regions Is In. And I'm here today with Joshua, with whom I invite to introduce himself before I present to you some general guidelines how this webinar will run. Joshua, could you please introduce yourself?
Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Thank you for joining us today on this professional development webinar led by the Regional Studies Association. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Joshua Barrett. I'm currently based in Newfoundland, Labrador, Canada, and I'm a PhD student in the Rural Studies program at the University of Guelph here in Canada as well. Excited to talk to you today about alternative ways of publishing material through regions and through the Regional Studies blog. And so we'll just get right to it. Thanks for joining, and we'll kick off the presentation.
Well, thank you so much, Joshua. As Joshua said, this is intended to be a conversation about publishing a non-standard academic piece. And we will bring our own experiences, in my case, particularly focus on early career researchers, and also as based on my previous years as editor of the Regions Design. And hopefully this will be very fruitful, 35 minutes. And we invite you already to bring your questions to the Q&A box just at the bottom of the Zoom screen, so we can really have a constructive discussion about publishing a non-standard academic piece. And also I invite you already to check periodically the Regional Studies Association webpage, where you will find other interesting webinars within this professional webinar series, and as well as others, and also engage with the community through different platforms, and also eventually apply for one of the founding schemes. And also this webinar is currently being recorded, and we will share the link with you all later on today, and also through our social media platforms. And so, as I said, this is what we bring today is results of our own experiences, and I will kickstart this discussion by bringing to you some of my ideas and some of what I consider being the benefits and opportunities of publishing a non-standard academic piece. And then Joshua will continue further on with his own points of view, and particularly focus on the Regional Studies Association blog. So I'm going to quickly share my screen with you all, and so again, this is intended to be the conversation, and please bring your questions to the Q&A box, and we'll be very happy to answer to you later on in this webinar. And I bring here some key points that you may understand that there is no one size fitting all in this context, and some of these key ideas then very much depends of yourself, your personality, and how you want to embrace the academic writing, or engage with less standard or non-standard academic writing. And to take home message from this slide, I think in my point of view, and also based on my experience, engaging with non-standard academic writing certainly improves the clarity of your writing and helps you building an overall reputation as a knowledgeable source around a specific subject. And these to me are fundamental two important benefits of these procedures within academic career. So it forces us to understand in a very fundamental manner our own subject. If we intend to explain a certain subject to a non-technical community, you have to be very careful about making those statements clearly and supported often through with a clear argumentation. I think this is very important and helps us to keep polishing and developing this writing technique. and also helps us to build an overall reputation about the subject we are engaged in and we are researching. This is less about branding ourselves, but branding our own writing, branding how we question certain subject. And it also helps to stick out within a specific community, regional studies community, planning community, development community, etc. Many other communities. It helps you, in particular, in a moment where you are still preparing an academic, a traditional manuscript, and you are not yet there. You can use these non-standard academic pieces to already pave the way to further conversations with senior academics, for example, during a standard conference, and in this context helps you to expand your network. And I think it makes sense to engage with this non-standard academic writing as a first step to consolidate yourself, to consolidate your research, and to also build a niche around that specific research. And the fundamental in my experience helps me to clearly state that this is certainly having these non-standard academic pieces helps to engage a good number of readers around your subject and around the way you explore this subject. And also, depending on the feedback you receive from these non-standard academic writings, from an editor, from the readers, it may very well help you to polish your research and to come up with new research ideas further on. And helps you to build this intellectual brand around yourself. And if you do not sympathize much with these marketing concepts, helps to build a recognition towards your subject. And now again, and how you question that subject eventually will lead to new ideas that can then, on one hand, help you to elaborate better, more standard academic writer. It certainly boosts creativity and a sense of critique, because you will enjoy freedom to explore, to be critical, but of course fundamenting all your rationale, and can definitely boost this sense of critique that you will be called upon when you are preparing more a standard academic writing. And eventually, in the end, although you are targeting a large audience, non-technical, you may well reach a technical audience, primarily governments and other public entities, depending, of course, on the subject you are exploring. These are intended to be some general tips, of course, depending on the context, as I said earlier. These may well vary across disciplines and across cases. And one thing is fundamental, is to explain clearly your concepts. If you bring theories, please clarify those theories very well and in the simplest way possible, by bringing a straightforward writing with active and short sentences. These are fundamental tips in my perspective if you intend to write a non-standard academic piece. And use questions, rhetorical questions, quite a lot. I think this is really important to engage the audience with your writing regarding that specific piece, but also eventually open doors for readers to continue engaging with yourself, seeking to read something more coming from you. And also try to, depending on the subject, try to engage with ongoing political discussion, environmental degradation threat that eventually occur with a current situation of crisis. So timeless heat is very important to make your non-standard academic piece impactful and fruitful to a larger community. And again, at the end, be very careful also about the platform. And my advice is to engage with a platform with an editor. So the editor will follow certain guidelines, as we do here with Original Studies Design and blog. We follow certain guidelines. So the editors will give you feedback, and then this will help you to go forward and with your non-standard academic piece. So as I said, we try to bring a little bit of this, our experiences within the Regions Ensign, and in particular timeless timeliness is very important within regions. So we try to bring subjects that are currently being discussed or the regional studies communities particularly focus on. So you see across our 8 published issues, topics such as Brexit. We engaged also earlier in our first issue with preoccupations of early career researchers, smart specialization, climate change, financialization of the urban and regional domains. So topics that are currently being intensively discussed across the regional studies and other communities related with urban and regional development. And these 8 issues, you find them in our platform. And if you are interested in writing to us, you have all the information you need in our platform. And these are the 3 issues of the year, and we are dedicating 2021 to the main topic of regions in transition. Again, a very timely subject. And within these 3 issues, you try to create a cluster here to sustain these regions in transition. One more focus on sustainability issues, another on this urban and rural dynamics in urban regions, and the final one towards the end of the year, focus on practice-oriented measures to help regions to overcome the negative impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic. Just a heads up here that Regions is an open access platform, so you don't pay any fees to publish within us. Each article will receive a DOI so you can keep tracking, and we engage quite intensively with social media. So in a very open and in an open way, you will have your article being distributed across a large number of platforms, and hopefully will help you to again build a conversation about your subject. And again, everything you need to know, you find on our contribution guidelines. You have the word limits of each section, the deadlines, sample articles as well per section, and you also have all the meanings of reaching out to us to pitch your potential article, and we will back to you often very quickly and with an idea about how you can better develop your non-standard academic writing towards regions. So this is a part of the conversation, and hopefully you find this useful. And now you will hear also from Josh regarding his own experience and also the regional studies blog. Josh, could you please bring your insights to the audience as well?
Certainly. Many thanks, Eduardo, for all of the insight that you just shared. And I believe our participants will notice a fair bit of overlap between some of the key messages that we have to share regarding utilizing different avenues to publish academic pieces. And so I just wanted to start off by articulating just a few reasons as to why you may want to consider publishing in these non-standard mediums for your research or the work that you're doing, why you should consider publishing on the Regional Studies Association blog or eZine. One of the great things about using and writing blog pieces is that it can help establish a writing routine. If you're writing an academic blog or a blog of anything, typically you're looking at a word count of less than 1,000 words. And in many cases, you can write this in one setting, and you can establish a distinct time of day to really direct towards this writing exercise. Oftentimes using or writing for a blog is a bit more of a creative process where you're not constrained by a lot of the more academic tendencies that we like to have when we're writing manuscripts. And so this is another opportunity to kind of get the creative juices flowing and for you to be able to articulate in a different way some of the main points that you want to get to, which is a good segue to my next point, and it helps you get to the main point. if you're writing a manuscript, you're writing a book chapter, there's a variety of messages that you want to get across to your audience. Using a blog, because of the limitations of the word count and just the nature of the medium, you really need to hone in on one point, and that can be a good exercise as you go on to explore longer writing pieces or other manuscripts. It can help be an exercise for you to really understand what the key message, what the key point is that you want to get across to your audience. And of course, one of the excellent ways of using and availing of the RSA blog, availing of the e-zine regions, as Eduardo noted, is that it really provides an opportunity for you to disseminate your research to a wide variety of audiences. Many of our RSA blog posts have been viewed thousands of times. We have an active presence on social media where you can target certain researchers, you can target certain opportunities, and it provides almost an online networking opportunity. And especially during this point in society where we find ourselves availing of more virtual opportunities, availing and utilizing and writing for a blog like the RSA blog is a really great medium to not only access and write online content, but a potential way to network your short academic piece to other audiences. And so considering that, to touch on briefly some of the aspects of the online blog, and I would encourage you to check out the blog for yourself, but just some of the guidelines that we like to operate on. Typically, we try at a minimum post 2 articles a month. This depends on things that are going on, whether we're doing a special feature or focus area on something, whether we're at a conference period of time when we're trying to do specific content. We try to do at least 2 articles a month. These articles typically range between 500 and 800 words. And we like to have articles, of course, based on evidence-based and backed by research. And so if you have, while it doesn't need to be research intensive and you're not required to have a certain number of citations, certainly would encourage you to use evidence-based research. And if there's 1 or 2 key references you'd like to cite, that is certainly an opportunity for you to do so. All of these articles undergo an editing process. Depending on the subject matter, they may also undergo a peer review process to ensure the integrity of what it is that we're publishing is appropriate and accurate. And I would encourage you, if you're interested at all in the RSA blog, you want to file a submission, certainly reach out. The RSA blog email address is provided there below. And if you're just interested in learning a bit more information, if you're not sure if your topic might be appropriate for that particular medium, I would suggest considering articulating an abstract before pursuing a full blog, just to ensure that our editors and yourself are on the same page in the outcome of that, because we certainly want to try and reduce the amount of time it would take in terms of the back and forth and the editing process as well. And so what exactly makes a good blog? What are some of these key takeaways if you're going to pursue writing a blog that are really good points to consider? And I believe Eduardo made a number of excellent points, and some of this will be articulated in the following slides. But based on my past 3 years serving as the RSA blog editor, I thought it might be worthwhile to put a couple of key takeaways based on some of the successful blogs that we've seen over the years. So first of all, when you're using in academic and in writing manuscripts, we certainly like to try and using catchy titles, but we can certainly move in that direction even a bit further when we're considering using online blogs. And so one online blog in particular I wanted to know that I thought was a particularly catchy title was from Kaufman, Selker, and Chang back in August 2020. Facing a new economic Goliath when benefiting from the Belt and Road Initiative slings Duisburg toward dependence. It's just, simple, informative, but it's a more of a catchy title that really attracts an online audience thinking, yeah, I would be interested in reading and pursuing what they have to say. And I believe catchy titles is often a really useful way of attracting individuals to read your blog. Timeliness and relevant materials. Certainly, as Eduardo mentioned, we can pair our online content with what's happening in the world today, especially considering the time it takes for manuscripts and other academic pieces to publish. With online forums, it's easier for us to get content out in a more timely manner. And what we didn't published in July 2020, certainly COVID-19 is a very timely topic matter in society today, but particularly at this time in Canada, we were wrestling with issues related to individuals living in urban areas and going away to rural communities and potentially spreading the virus in rural areas where they might not have the capacity, the healthcare capacity to deal with these potential issues. And so things, ongoing issues that are arising, it's a bit easier for us to try to put that on an online format a bit more timely and quicker than perhaps other mediums that you might be more active in. Use of voice in online content, the RSA blog and zine regions. Time and time again, when I talk to individuals about the RSA blog, more often than not, I'm pointed back towards what John Harrison published in August 2018, where he really did a fine job in articulating not necessarily an academic research-oriented piece, but just the process in which he took in terms of preparing for his conference presentation, preparing for his manuscript, and these types of considerations that he has. And while we certainly encourage and publish a lot of the latest and greatest regional research policy and development, we would certainly encourage and support submissions that look at other aspects, the critical thinking, the less academic articulations of things and more based on personal experience. Obviously, there's a line there where we're not really we don't exclusively it's not an opinion editorial type business, but we do encourage these other types of ways of articulating your submission. Search engine optimization. I realize this is very much a jargon slang that is new to a lot of you folks. It's just a very articulate, specific way of saying, why not hyperlinking some of the words that you're using in your blog? If there's a certain source that you can insert a link, if there's multiple photos that you can include in your blog, search engine optimization, or SEO, is simply a fancy way of saying you're doing certain things in your blog article to ensure that more viewers access your blog. And so this might be, like I mentioned, hyperlinking certain text to other websites, to other articles. Green in particular used 7 hyperlinks in her article, which was very useful. And using photos and other different types of material is a bit easier just in terms of the web engines like Google and whatnot to pick up on these types of online material. And the last point I'll mention is social media. And I wanted to grab a recent tweet from the Regional Studies Association Twitter account, which is very active and very pivotal in disseminating online content, whether it's the blog or regions or other materials that the organization does. But I cannot understate the power of social media in terms of disseminating these types of material. If you avail of the RSA blog, we can certainly work with the association to tweet and ensuring that this is out, and we can get that on Twitter as well. But if you have your own Twitter account, you can tweet it, you can make appropriate messages like the one provided here. You can retweet. It's just an excellent opportunity not only to get that knowledge out there, but to further extend the online dialogue with your followers, with the followers of the Regional Studies Association. And it's just a really useful medium to disseminate this online content. And so I would be remiss to if I didn't point out there is an opportunity to become the new RSA blog editor. As I noted at the beginning of my discussion here today, my 3-year term has come to an end, and so we would certainly encourage anybody that is interested in a career development opportunity to become the RSA blog editor to consider applying. The deadline has been extended to Monday, February 15th. And if you have any further information, please do feel free to contact Daniela. Her email is provided there below. And we would certainly be happy to have a number of different applicants and looking at the future direction of the blog. So I will conclude with that for my presentation now, and I'll pass it over to Eduardo as he begins to facilitate the Q&A discussion.
Exactly. Well, very well. Joshua, thank you so much for taking the time and prepare this interesting presentation. Before getting into the questions from the audience, so Joshua talked about creativity, catchy titles, timeliness as well, use the voice, the importance of social media, and how we engage with the social media. And we have already a good number of questions coming in, and I will bring the first question to Joshua. Then there's another one that I can respond. Joshua, one question here is that, is there a DOI on the blog?
Well, thank you for your question. At this time, we do not have a DOI for the blog. That is not something that we have discussed in great detail thus far, just due to the nature of the online format. But certainly, that might be something that we want to consider moving forward. But at the time, there's no DOI for the blog. However, Eduardo, I believe there is a DOI for the regions.
Yes, we do assign a DOI for each article within the main sections, those that you are invited to contribute: regional insights, spotlight, and research frontline. Indeed, that is a particular element of the regions is in. And one of questions also that I can respond comes that someone is asking if there are opportunities to write an article about current research which may not fit into one of the theme issues. So this is really a tricky subject. So I invite you to write to us, pitch your idea briefly. It doesn't need even to be an abstract, one paragraph. Explain your core goals, the aims of your potential contribution, and I will give you feedback. Of course, we have to prioritize articles that are aligned with the prime issues of each year. In this case, 2021 regions in transition, but we are also very flexible and very much depends of the section. Spotlight and research frontline, we particularly welcome longer pieces up to 2,500, 3,000 words. We are more flexible with shorter pieces towards the regional insights section, between 800, 1,000 words maximum. So we are a bit flexible here. So if your contribution does not really quite fit the theme, we invite you to try to in one paragraph build towards that topic, so then you can contribute. And I can take one of the questions here already. Joshua, someone asked if if the manuscript confined to empirical works, or I guess this is related with, if the blog only seeks empirical work only, or is open to other types of research as well?
Certainly, appreciate the question. We are certainly open to works of all kinds, whether it's empirical and policy related, or whether you have more of a think piece or theoretical contribution that you want to confine to a blog format. There is really we've posted both aspects in the past. A lot of the work we've done in the past has been empirical, but we have certainly published more think pieces and more theoretical contributions as well. And so we have an opportunity with the blog to be creative and publish different types of material, whether it's empirical, theoretical, or whatever else.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think this already responds to another questions on the if these blog posts are more oriented towards think pieces, or they which are perhaps a bit more recent, or if they should be linked to other manuscripts or papers. So, do you want to build on this question? If I think you already respond, but do you want to complement somehow?
Yeah, sure. I believe just to expand a bit on what I mentioned, they can be, in the past we have published both perhaps a condensed version of a volume, an edited volume, a condensed version of a manuscript. We've also provided what you perhaps call a think piece of perhaps an ongoing situation. There were I can't articulate the specific article or articles right now, but there's been scholars in the past that wanted to provide insight, their particular perspective on a new policy or a new European Union Commission decision, and we've done different types of material like that are currently ongoing in the in society today. So that would be we would entertain both types of submissions.
Well, thank you so much, and I will answer here the question if Regions Design and the blog are open for graphics, photos, and charts. I'll tell, indeed, we very much welcome photos, graphics, tables, charts. At the moment, not videos, unless they come in a form of a YouTube link, for example. That is also fine within Regions Design. And we always incentivated the authors to bring graphics. So you can also use this to experiment different ways of presenting your results or bringing your ideas. I think Josh, probably the blog also certainly welcomes graphics and other type of ways of communicating, right?
Yes, certainly. I mean, I think you certainly appropriately address that, but we would certainly encourage graphics, photos, charts. Not only is that useful for a viewership perspective, but it can also, to go back to my point, the whole search engine optimization. It can help attract search engines to come up with your material more efficiently. So we would certainly encourage those types of things to be included as well.
Okay, one question here. I think I can also underline that's about the distribution through mailing list. The regional studies, if you publish a blog post within the regional with the RSI blog or the Regions Design, first we communicate all articles one by one through social media several times, and we try also to engage with conversations if the topic of that article features, for example, a current discussion or a specific account. And also the regional studies distribute the newsletter, and they always bring the link to a new blog post, and also the link to the latest issue of Regions Design. So one question here is more I'll say philosophical, and that it may take quite some time to answer. And I think it's a question regarding to what extent we can these non-standard academic pieces can be better accepted by founding institutions as well as faculties, that when they are, for example, evaluating early careers towards progressing in the career. My opinion, before I ask Joshua to try to answer, is that it still a lot of room to improve in these contexts. Some of us, we devote a lot of time to write these non-standard academic pieces, and in my perspective, it also should be valued as well. It is more or less in the same level as a peer-reviewed article, but there is certainly a long way for this to become widely accepted by assessment committees or founding institutions. I don't know what is your opinion, Josh, in this context. Is the importance of how we can make this non-standard academic writer quite more respected among senior researchers and institutions as well.
No, I think it's certainly a great question, one of which you know, could certainly be explored in greater detail than perhaps our Q&A here. But I believe there's two ways to consider it. One in which you kind of have almost the stick and the carrot analogy, where we're trying to provide incentives for individuals to pursue publishing, open access, to pursue using these alternative mediums like the blog, like the online magazine, and there's a lot of opportunity there, whether it be networking, whether it be being able to engage with some of these community champions that you mentioned. The other side of that is that there is a requirement now by many funding agencies that we, as researchers, we need to continue pursuing more types of engagement and open access publishing and these different types of mediums. And so I believe it could go both ways, but there's certainly a lot of work that we can do on that front.
So yeah, thank you so much. It's also an interesting question here, that how we can somehow use the blog post to target a policy audience and not only an academic audience. Do you have some tips? I can say something, but I would like to hear from you, Joshua, first, about how we can use the blog to hit a policy audience.
It's a great question, and I believe the great thing about a blog is that it can almost be like a briefing note almost. You're thinking about a policy audience and you're trying to disseminate knowledge to certain people and individuals. They would be more likely to read a 1 or 2 page document versus a 15-20 page document. And so I certainly believe the opportunity with a blog article and a medium such as this does allow these more condensed, focused points to be articulated to perhaps policy members, perhaps other individuals that may not have once read a more lengthy or articulate document. But I'm certainly interested in hearing your perspective on that as well, Eduardo.
Well, yes. Well, thank you so much. This is what we try within Regions is when we comment on the articles. Each editor is responsible for one section, and we are responsible to comment and give feedback to the authors. And in some cases, we invite authors to revise their titles, and if based on our experience and knowledge regarding the subject, we invite the authors, for example, to revise their titles. And if it's a piece that is target a certain policy domain, we invite them to put this clearly at the beginning of the blog, of the article, using the title to reach out. And when the article is published, when the issue of Regions is out, then this is our work as editors to engage with social media and target by tagging specific accounts of policy-based institutions, the European Union, World Bank, depending of which contact, the government in India, as we recently did with an article on slums in India, for example. So we try to also target target specifically not only academics but also or a general audience, think tanks, NGOs, and also policy institutions. And a final question, as we are well, we have some flexibility here, but we already reached the 40 minutes. 40 minutes. It's a question about along with the RSI blog, the Regions is in. Josh, would you like to recommend other platforms to publish non-standard academic pieces? One last question that remains here.
Certainly, I believe there's a number of different outlets that certainly from when I consider, if you're interested in other potential blogs that could be considered. A number of universities now have their own online blogs. I know the RSA works with the London School of Economics and their online blog. There's a number of universities over across Europe, University of Birmingham and other institutions that have active and ongoing online content, such as the blog. A website that comes to mind is The Conversation. We've had blogs in the past where we've reposted with permission from some of these institutions to our blog, and so we certainly have been happy with these types of mediums in the past, and we'll certainly continue exploring other outlets for online content creation. Eduardo, I don't know if you have anything to add on that question as well.
Yes, I think also it depends very much on the subject. Within my field, more related with spatial planning, urban and regional developments, there are a couple of them. Those based in the UK, related with the Institute of Place Management, for example. They have a very dynamic blog, and I use them to also share some of my previous preliminary findings when I was doing the PhD. Very much depends on the subject, and I think The Conversation is certainly a very good example. And then depends on the subject, but there are still good platforms where you can publish your insights. And a really final question, I think very much directed to you, Josh, and the role of editor of the blog is that someone asks how many hours a week it takes to edit the blog, and which technological background should an editor have in that specific role, and also if needs to know some techniques about web developments. Probably you are very familiar with editing the blog. Could you build on this? Could you try to respond on this?
Certainly, it's a great question. The amount of time it would take to edit the RSA blog, if you're speaking purely from an editorial perspective, the amount of time it takes to edit isn't necessarily a lot of time. If you get submissions in, because they're short in nature, the editing process doesn't take an overly long time. However, the RSA blog editor goes beyond just editing material. There's outreach of trying to attract individuals to read the blog, connections, dissemination, working with the RSA staff. The number of hours a week to do all of that holistically may not be an appropriate articulation of the amount of work involved, because it depends on how you organize your time. I would say perhaps monthly, you're looking at, it could be upwards to 10 hours. It could be more, it could be less. It depends on how you organize your outreach, your content creation and editing. I think it's reasonable to expect upwards to 10 hours a month. On a given week, it depends on the articles that come in. It could be 1 to 2 hours a week. It could be more depending on what it is you want to do. The technological background, I believe, might be paired with your question on web development. Having an understanding of web development isn't necessarily a requirement to be the RSA editor. I will say it would be an asset if you're familiar with the WordPress platform, because you can go in, that's the platform that we use. You can go in, you can publish your content, and you can go from there. I will say it is very intuitive. There are documents available which we can share with the successor for the RSA blog to learn and utilize the WordPress platform. So certainly it's not a requirement. It might be considered an asset, but it's not a huge learning curve to be able to do that. The last thing I'll mention, I believe we might have addressed this already, but in terms of the email list for the blog post, as Eduardo mentioned already, there is a monthly newsletter with the Regional Studies Association that outlines all of our work that has been published and upcoming events that past month, and the regions and the posts from the blog are included in that newsletter as well. So I would certainly encourage you, if that's of interest, to get in contact with the RSA team, and we can certainly ensure that you're added onto that list. So, but that's it for me. Thanks.
Well, many thanks. Also, so it's time to close the webinar. Thank you so much for attending, and I invite you to keep checking the Regional Studies Association website for the forthcoming webinars. And this is the goodbye from our side. Wish you all the best and take care. See you next time.